Welcome. We are ready to start with all this attendees. So, welcome. This is the blockchain meetup of the Sharing City Summit. We are going to talk about different projects that are creating a new way to understand sharing economy using blockchain. Okay, I'm Ferran Reyes, and I will not take more time because I want the speakers to have the voice here. So I will let them to introduce in a lightning way their projects. So John, if you want to start, John Hearty.
Yep. Hello, my name is John Hearty, and I am with Origin Protocol, and we are building a blockchain platform for decentralized marketplaces. So for the last 20 years or so, commerce on the internet has completely changed with companies like eBay and Craigslist that allowed two people to transact directly with each other. And with the advent of the blockchain, you're able to actually do this in a truly peer-to-peer nature. Companies like Airbnb and Uber claim to be peer-to-peer, but there's actually a big centralized corporate company right in the middle that is hoarding all of the data of the users and siloing that data and taking big transaction fees. So there's several very important reasons to disintermediate these centralized companies. The number one reason is to lower fees. These companies usually take somewhere between 20 and 30% and sometimes higher of each transaction, and when you can remove that middleman, the fees go with it. One of the other big reasons is to redistribute value much more fairly throughout the network. So if you think about what the first Uber driver is doing today, he's probably still driving Uber, and he's probably making less money than he was on day one. So because of these crypto economic incentives, you can actually incentivize the early users of these networks to gain value as the company gains value. Instead of just the investors making money and the founders making money, the early participants of the network can also participate in the growth of these networks. The third reason is to promote free and open commerce. So governments are notorious for regulating these companies. In Airbnb, in San Francisco, 50% of the listings from Airbnb were removed in one day because the government came after Airbnb. They are a single point of failure. But when you distribute these and you put these listings on the blockchain, there's no single point of failure to go after for these regulations. Uber has been banned in many cities across the world, so we're really excited about how the blockchain can allow all of these cities and countries to take advantage of these sharing economy applications. One of the biggest reasons, and the little bit longer term reason, is to serve the billions of unbanked. So in order to use something like Airbnb or Uber, you need a credit card, you need a bank account, and billions of people in the world do not have access to these traditional financial systems, but they do have access to cheap Android phones with cryptocurrency wallets. And so we're excited about seeing these unbanked actually leapfrogging the traditional financial system and participating in these sharing economies through these cryptocurrency-powered networks. The way we're doing this is we're building the protocol layer on Ethereum. So how do you represent these listings in smart contracts? And then we are building a JavaScript library on top of these smart contracts. Not a lot of developers know Solidity or know how to write a smart contract, but they know JavaScript, so we want to give them access to these blockchain applications and abstract away the blockchain piece of it and just allow them to make a few JavaScript calls and spin up a quick marketplace. And then we've also built an application on top of this platform. It's live today on the Ethereum mainnet. You can go to dapp.originprotocol.com, and you'll see a very simple buy and sell style marketplace today that will definitely evolve over time. So I'll cut it short there just to leave time for everybody else. Thank you very much for having me. Check out our website, originprotocol.com. Check out our GitHub. We do everything open source, and we'd really love everybody to come participate and contribute.
Thank you, John. Now we are going to that side. So I introduce you Manuel Ruiz from Bitnation.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to this talk. Well, Bitnation, it's what we do is, as you know, blockchain is this distributed ledger in which the transactions and everything it's public and immutable. No, so we use this technology to do digital jurisdictions, jurisdictions that work as a, in a way, we try to rethink the way governments provide governance service to the citizens, no, in a decentralized manner. So through our dApp, Pangea, we give to the citizens and organizations the tools to earn sovereignty and to provide them with tools to build up their virtual communities, no, that are completely borderless and virtual, so they can reclaim their sovereignty in the blockchain. As well, you asked me about, in the question you made me, you asked about the difference between Aragon and other companies that do similar things. No, I think that mostly Bitnation, we work more for organizations that are more like a nation and for communities. And in fact, we are thinking to introduce Aragon into our dApp, some related, something like for companies, more like Aragon or Democracy Kit. And as well, I wanted to tell you about the things that we are already doing in Bitnation that have been used already in the real world and are like, I think it was in 2015, October 5, we did the first blockchain marriage certificate. Later on, we did in Ghana, we did the first land certificate for our, I think it was a parking. And then in 2015 as well, Sion, the nephew of Suzanne Tarkovsky, our founder, was the first child that was registered his birth as a birth certificate in the blockchain. We used the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain to do it. And also in 2015, we were close with Estonia in their e-residency program to build up a notary system that it's already being used for thousands of people all over the world. So we really think that smart governments like Estonia, Malta, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Arabic United Emirates are already seeing that we will see soon the idea of that a government will be smart enough to use this technology for their citizens, but they will be able very soon to give governance services to people all over the world. So these governments are already working in this direction. Also tell you that this year we are very happy because we are showing up our passports. We have, I think it was like 1 month ago, we are releasing our diplomatic passports in Bitnation that are available in our website. They can be bought with our token. And our passports that already have been stamped in some borders all over the world, and basically they use a QR code to link you to the public address of your user account in Pangea. Also tell you that if you want to have a look at our website, it's Bitnation.co, and that you can find our dApp called Bitnation Pangea in Google Store and Apple Store as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Now it's the time of Summer Hassan from Peer-to-Peer Models.
Thanks a lot for having me here. So Peer-to-Peer Models is not a startup or an enterprise, but a large research project, because we believe that there is still a lot of research to do before we can build robust infrastructure in this field. So the way we see the sharing or collaborative economy, we see 3 main problems here. So one, it's obviously centralization of the infrastructure. So we have these large platforms dealing with hundreds of thousands or millions of users, and they are the sole controller of an infrastructure. Regardless if we are talking of hardware and software, all these users are dealing with the same entity, controlling this software and hardware, which just for scaling has a lot of running costs. This pushes them to monetize as much as they can their services, which has immediate implications for the users, because how these entities can monetize their services? Well, typically with the data of the users, right? So surveillance is the business model of the internet. And therefore, this centralized problem leads to a governance problem. So regardless of how many scandals we see happening with Uber or Airbnb, the users have no impact whatsoever on how the platforms evolve. Similarly, even if it's the users who are creating the value in these communities, the profits are always concentrated in the owners of the infrastructure. So the research question of peer-to-peer models is if we can create platforms in another way. Can we create platforms which rely on a decentralized infrastructure? So instead of having a single owner of the infrastructure, we cannot have structurally a single owner managing all what is happening in the network. Can we have platforms that are governed in a democratic way, so the users have a saying on how the platforms evolve? And can we have economic models where the profit and the value is distributed across the network, and not concentrated in the owners of the infrastructure? So in order to deal with all these questions, we are trying to tackle it with blockchain and other decentralized technologies. So we will be using decentralized autonomous organizations, which is kind of, we already have organizations that are dealing with, the rules are embedded in the code. Each time that we transact in a community like Airbnb, the users are mediated by some code in the platform. And here we would have the code encoded in the blockchain. So then we should care about how this code is developed and who's governing this code. In order to do that, we will be providing tools for developers in order to facilitate the construction of these DAOs, reusing components from other projects out there. We are planning to use Aragon. We are exploring Origin. We are exploring other technologies that are out there in order to facilitate a lot the construction of new services on the collaborative economy, combining small building blocks. So we can easily combine building blocks, and including, for example, a governance model that I want this representative democracy model, or I prefer a more rough consensus model in which decision-making is more flat instead of having representatives. And similarly, dealing with building blocks that are economic models. So I want some reputation network in order to create value in my network. No, I would rather have some, just some a small token or cryptocurrency in which, for example, uploaders are rewarded and downloaders have to pay a micro fee. Our approach is not focused on finance, so we focus much more in commons-oriented communities. Because we would like, let's say, less Airbnbs and more Wikipedias. In order to do that, we are not only building infrastructure, but we are also working with communities to make pilots with them. So how can we facilitate transitions with existing large, mature communities in the field and try to do some, for example, automatizing some part of their governance or providing automatic rewards with innovative economic models that, for example, do not rely on markets, but in other types of incentives. And we have 5 years ahead of us, and we are happy to collaborate with other projects out there as long as they are open source. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Summer. This is a place to collaborate, so be free to speak with other projects. Now I'm going to introduce Marc Rocas. That, ¿sí? Okay, let's introduce Plurall from
Hello, everyone. Excuse me for being a bit late, but I will try to speak a little bit here about our project Plurall and how it relates with the other blockchain projects here. We work in a kind of different layer because we work more in the human side of those solutions. Right now, we are in a big change of paradigm. Like, we had this centralized organization and centralized database that would push us the information, that would push us how we would perceive things. Our idea with Plurall, our mission there, is to find better ways to connect, is to find better ways to exchange. So we have to understand what is being exchanged and who is taking part of this negotiation. For us, one of the main concepts, like, we need to understand that with this change, a lot of things will change on how the user will feel. Like, we don't simply go for a centralized infrastructure to a decentralized one without, like, first, like, letting users know what is the capabilities of these new technologies. We need to observe these people, and we need to create new UX to make those changes possible and to enable those users to take profit or to take advantage of those technologies. Here, we've seen some people working at the protocol level, or how this information is transferred and exchanged on governance levels, where this organization exists, how are the boundaries of those organizations. But we still need to talk about, like, who are the users using that? What is the goals behind using those technologies? Right now, we will have, like, different incentives. So when we are talking about platforms that are exchanging ways and creating values in different ways, we also need to think about a value proposal for each stakeholder inside this ecosystem. And the technology is really, really young. Bitcoin is like 10 years old. So how do we research these things? You can't really simply get data from Facebook and say, like, hey, people will behave that way in a decentralized social network. It shouldn't be like that. So we need to explore. So what's our goal? Is, like, let's provide those softwares. Let's take advantage of this, of some of those capabilities. Like, we are doing open source software, so we can, like, we can copy and paste, like, different business models, and we can try that scale in reduced costs. So, but you simply don't get, like, the new user and onboard him through this system. You have to get this you have to get this user, or that will be a stakeholder, and make him understand the capabilities of decentralized technologies. You don't simply get, like, a developer and tell him, like, hey, now we're gonna work, like, in all front end, or we're gonna use just Solidity. It's like, why we are doing that? I think this onboard will take some time, but most part of this work is the intention. It's the intention of, okay, we're gonna fail. Okay, we're gonna make some things wrong, but we have to try to push this decentralized agenda, to push this, like, user-centered design, to push, like, these changes that are necessary if you want to rethink the internet, if you want to rethink where we do exchange those values. It's not only the protocol, but how we take advantage of those technologies. So our idea is, like, let's provide, like, software, let's provide social networks, let's provide voting platforms, and let's provide ways that people can interact with those new technologies, even if it's not, like, the latest protocol, even if it's not the most finished work. We still need to try it. We need to push this, how we see the future, how we see our exchanging those values in the future, and let's try it with the things we can. We are, like, most everyone here is open source, almost everyone here is collaborative, so let's take our strengths and let's try to imagine this future where we can exchange and where we can connect freely, and let's build the infra and the software to do that.
Thank you, Rafael. Marc, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Marc Rocas. I'm currently a PhD candidate at Open University of Catalonia, researching on the blockchain, the governance, related with this field of contact between the blockchain and what I call analog organizations that are using distributed systems of governance. We can talk about, of course, the commons. We can talk about platform cooperativism. We can talk about co-ops that have a long tradition, for example, here in Catalonia. And I don't know, I have some comments about the rest of the presentations. For example, from my point of view, I'm interested with the presentation that you did from Origin. What are you going to do to compete with Uber in the real market? Because we are not beginning from scratch a new system, a new world. No? When you are going outside, there is an Uber with all the strength and resources that they have. How you are going to give to a citizen a value proposition that is more valuable than the one that Uber is providing now. I don't know if you want to answer this now or later. Okay, perfect. Then, I don't know if it's enough, or do you want that I say more things? Or
You can open topics and we can...
okay, there is something that... the first thing that I want to say is this is not a male panel. I'm going to represent. I'm going to represent Virginia too. I don't know what happened. I talked with her yesterday. Virginia was coming to represent to the Blockchain Catalonia Association. I belong to this association too, so I'm going to represent her here. So the intention was not this image that we are giving now. More things that we have to say is when we are talking about blockchain, I have to say, if I'm honest, this is the first time that only a few people are coming with the word blockchain, because normally when you are publishing blockchain, a lot of people are coming. There is a hype, and there is a lot of, I don't know, maybe attraction or engagement, or call it as you want. Then, from my point of view, it's extremely difficult. Twice. From my point of view, it's extremely difficult to try to deal with all this noise that the technology has today. You said something that is very interesting. We are just at the beginning of everything. We have to consider that this is a young technology, and we have to be realistic about what the blockchain can do today and cannot do today. I am working as consultant too, and then some customers are coming. Oh, I have heard that we can implement the blockchain in our company. Most of the times the answer is no, or wait a few years. And sadly, what they are doing then is going to the next company saying yes. But this is not my decision. Okay, most of times when you analyze the real potential that the blockchain has today, you have to deal with problems of scalability. You have to deal with problems of trust related to the technology. And I don't know if you want that I talk about the blockchain for good now or later. Or
maybe later, because I have
later. Okay, yeah. Then I finish here, and then we are going to talk about the rest of the things.
Perfect.
Later.
Thank you, Marc.
There's a pending question for later if you want.
Okay, now we are gonna start a bit the expert panel. Okay, so I will start with a question for Summer. So, Marc, if you can give the microphone. Okay, so looking at all your projects and all the projects that you can find on the internet regarding how blockchain can disrupt different topics or sides of the society, I imagine that blockchain somehow can disrupt the sharing economy, no? But is blockchain the best tool to democratize and the economy and the governance of the Web 3, let's say, or the 20th century society? And could we remove intermediaries, and should we?
That's a very good question. So I don't like to say, no, blockchain is the best, because there are multiple decentralized technologies out there. I do believe that blockchain has potentials that we hope that will be developed. We don't know yet if some structural problems will be solved in order to scale, for example, and stuff like that. I do see potential for decentralizing the governance that is currently centralized in the owner of the platform. So if we can, the blockchain enables a governance where this ownership over the platform is much more fluid. It's not as centralized as the classical platforms. Even in Wikipedia, where they have put a huge effort on democratizing the governance of their platform, it requires, by definition, a huge effort, right? Because in the end, there is a single place where the servers are hosted. There is a single legal entity that is controlling these servers. So who's controlling the code, how the code evolves, who can unplug the server and who has that power, it's something that typically communities are not questioning much, but it does define power relations. So in order to intervene there, I think the blockchain has definitely potential for democratization.
Okay, and about if we should remove intermediaries in sharing economy?
I think depends on the case. There are some intermediaries that are not creating value in a chain, in a supply chain, and there are other intermediaries that are useful, that provide a trust that is needed. We don't need to remove everything and just deal with users because we will need new. If we have an interaction that is only between you and me, we don't know each other, and you are going to host me, maybe I will hire an insurance company to make sure that when I arrive to your place, there is some way that I will be able to enter. So, okay, I'm removing Airbnb, but I'm hiring another third party for me not to absorb all the risk. So when we are dealing with totally disintermediated peer-to-peer networks, blah, 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 we still need some kinds of intermediaries in some cases. So it's a kind of a myth, this thing of, no, we will just be all hyper-individualistic society in which only individuals and no entities and collectives exist. I think this doesn't work.
Okay.
At the same time, there are intermediaries that have a lot of power, that are exploiting the users, that are exploiting the transactions, that are taking benefit of a monopolistic role. Okay, these definitely are intermediaries that we want to remove from the equation, right? So I think depending on the intermediary.
Okay, thank you, Summer.
Yeah.
So now there is a question for John. As Origin is one of the projects working on identity, like self-sovereign identity. That is one of the main topics now in blockchain because people realize that we need to identify, to use some services that can be developed and used using blockchain, but there are humans using these services. So it's not only a technological challenge, but we need also trust and agreements. How are you going to solve it in Origin protocol?
Yeah, so at Origin, we've decided to use the approach of using an open source identity standard. So, so far we've landed on ERC 725, which is an identity standard proposed by Fabian Vogelsteller, the creator of the ERC20 token. We've also created an ERC 725 alliance and got 20 plus other projects that are also using this standard. And when you do this, it actually opens up some very interesting benefits. So Facebook is very famous for having these network effects, right? As more people join, it becomes more useful for everybody. So we see that translating over into our context, but not just network effects within Origin, but also shared network effects. So I may sign up for a home sharing service that's built on Origin, and I create my identity on Origin, but now not only can that identity and possibly reputation and other things tied to identity be used at the home sharing marketplace, but it can also be used at other Origin-powered marketplaces, and additionally, any other services that have also adopted this ERC 725 standard. So it was important to us to do this in an open source way so that we could get as much collaboration as possible. There's still a lot of challenges to solve for identity, but it is probably the most important thing in the context of a marketplace, because if you can solve identity, it becomes much easier to deal with reputation, with dispute resolution, etc. So that was the direction we decided to take. And just to quickly address a couple of the other things that both of you guys actually brought up. I agree about the intermediaries. I don't think it's going to be as simple as just cutting them out. I think what's going to happen is it will force these intermediaries to provide value for what they're doing. So today, if you look at some of these marketplaces, you see incredibly high fees, 20, 30, 40%, sometimes even much, much higher. And for the most part, this fee is justified simply for matching the buyer and the seller. That is really generally what most of these companies are doing. They also provide things like insurance and dispute resolution, et cetera. But is that worth 20, 30, 40% of the transaction every single time? Probably not. So I think what you'll see is these middlemen will be forced to adapt and provide actual value long term, not just at the beginning setting up this infrastructure to match buyers and sellers. You can use the blockchain to do that. And to address Marc Rocas, I totally agree. You're not going to get a decentralized Uber today because of technological challenges, and users need the experience to be great. These companies have done really important things over the last 5 to 10 years, and people now expect this type of experience when they use these platforms. So regardless of whether you're building something decentralized or not, it needs to be at par with what users expect today. People won't just use it only because it's decentralized. But there are all sorts of reasons that users would use these decentralized applications if they were at par with their centralized alternatives. So things like censorship, fighting censorship, regulation, or again, like I mentioned, not everybody has access to Airbnb and Uber, right? It's something that we maybe take for granted here in these big cities, but in some of the more rural parts of the world, they just simply don't have access to it. So we're excited about what these cryptocurrency wallets on Android phones will be able to do.
Thank you, John. I want to do another question for you.
Yeah.
Can you explain in a tweet the differences, if you can, between centralized identity and the decentralized identity you are working on?
I'll do my best. So the way that ERC 725 approaches identity is it allows a user to make claims. So to take a step back, a user has an Ethereum wallet address, and they can make claims against this wallet address. So they can say, my name is John Hearty, I work at Origin. They can make these claims, which is one piece of it, that are tied to this wallet address. The other piece is that they can allow third parties to make attestations to this wallet address. So today in Origin, we have 5 different attestations: phone number, email, Twitter, Facebook, and Airbnb. And what you're doing is you are cryptographically proving that the owner of this Ethereum wallet address also is in control of this phone number, this email, etc. So it allows two parties to be able to see, okay, that this, I may not know. One thing that's important here is, identity. Let's say I have like a driver's license. You can Photoshop a driver's license very easily, but it's pretty difficult to create, a Facebook profile with thousands of friends and connections and tons of history, years of history of posting, and same with Twitter, et cetera. So we see these as an important complement to some of these centralized identity standards that'll still probably take place today. But when you can not need this third party to, or even more importantly, choose. Maybe I'll accept one service to verify my phone number because I trust them and I don't trust some other service to do so, right? So it gives choice to the user as far as who they trust and how they're assessing somebody's identity.
Okay, thank you. So now is the time for Manuel. I would like to know, as we talk, we sent some topics yesterday. You are working in a field that can change completely how we understand the jurisdiction and relation between humans, no?
Yeah.
That in a diplomatic way, let's say. How Bitnation face the future in this case? I mean, how Bitnation is going to attract the masses and gain the reputation to have one diplomatic passport from Bitnation, and that someone recognize that diplomatic passport as something to identify yourself.
Yeah, I understand it's not easy. Like it's a very hard to. In fact, we have a team of 13 persons that are going around the world and traveling with their passport and the Bitnation passport, and they are trying it in some borders. And in some cases, in some countries, they end up in the jail for a few days, no? So we have a legal team that has taken off them. but we already have the passport stamped in some countries and in Middle East. Our founder, Susan Tempelhoff, travels a lot and she's just trying it. And regarding to mass adoption, just tell you that, well, we are already having this connection with Estonia, e-residence program, so our notary system is already being used for a lot of people. And also tell you that we won in 2015 an award of the UNET Explo from UNESCO. They gave us an award for providing an emergency ID to war refugees. So we can say that already our technology has been used already. And regarding the thing of the identity, we have also this problem, no, that we really need to find a way to find the proof of personhood, proof of humanity, and proof of individuality, no, because otherwise our network can suffer a civil attack, no. So we have developed this reputation system that, in a way, the users get rewarded for behaving honestly in the network, no, like other startups does, no. And this is a way also to protect the network from a civil attack, to have your identity, because it's not easy to earn this reputation. You have to make trading agreements, and it's not fair to have a trading agreement of 1 cent, you know, so you can have a lot. So we are we have a very interesting guy that's called Johan Nygren, and he works as a developer for Bitnation, and he's developing this idea of making a token that you earn when once a month there is a public meetup and two persons are together all the time, so they can recognize that they are humans, and they can recognize that they exist, in a way, proof of existence, no? But we really want, is something that for us it's very important. We want these identities to be pseudo-anonymous, because we consider that biometrics and all this information in blockchains could be a bit dangerous in some cases. Like, it could lead to some genocide, you know, like to have the list of people that they don't want. So we are trying to find a way. It's not easy. We have to be thinking in it for a long time, but it has to be done. It's a bottleneck right now for us. And also tell you that the thing that you were talking about, the democratization, no? If blockchain will help us, I really think that all this reputation system will bring us to a meritocracy more than a democracy. No, I think blockchain has enough power to maybe make the future not democratic at all. Like, and also, I don't know. I prefer to talk about distributed ledgers, about not blockchain, because right now we are in fact, Bitnation is blockchain agnostic. We are able to move to other, in the future, our citizens will be able to register their smart contracts in EOS, in Hashgraph, in Tezos. Also, we are working with a project that it's called BitLattice, that right now it's in a testnet, but it provides a very fast, zero fees, high scalability, high security network. So we are open to leave blockchain like as something that was really important, but was just the first step to a bigger revolution.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for you. Could you tell me how you imagine the use of Bitnation in 40 years? A use case?
Well, a use case that you can already have is that right now in our chat you can already do commerce between the citizens with our wallet, just publishing your not even your public address, your public address as a citizen, so you don't really need to have, it's already linked in Ether and XPAT, which is our token. I think that I don't know if you are readers of science fiction books, but there's a book called The Era of Diamond. Have you heard about it? It's about this thing of digital jurisdictions. And it's been interesting because you can see that it's going this direction. Once again, no science fiction, it's providing us a vision of the future. I think it will be like governance service will be like, in a way, like you will decide your governance service provider as you decide your phone company, which I think it's pretty cool because the Westphalian Treaty was done like in the 17th century. It was not done for sure for the internet generation. So I think we're going to end up in something like this. It will be like something that you choose just like your car insurance or something decentralized and not monopolistic at all. And in fact, our goal, the final goal of Bitnation, is the creation of virtual communities that in a way they compete for citizens. That's the way they will improve them. They put the prices lower. Otherwise, if you have a monopoly that, as we see nowadays, that it's completely unfair. You were born this place, you have to deal with this governance service. They don't really need to improve their services. So I think it will be just like an app where you can, well, how it works, our app and it's like at any time you can press a button, you are inside the community and you are outside. So you just pay for it, a very little fee for the minors, and you are in, you are out. You can completely opt in, opt out of the communities completely freely. I think it will be like this.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. So now I want to talk with Rafael. So in blockchain, you can deploy nodes that can connect with each other, can talk between them, can interoperate. So this is a really, let's say, really decentralized and democratic way to understand a network. But let's go to the human networks. How blockchain can do the same for human networks? How we can make people more empowered to connect with each other, to create projects in a community.
We've been talking about how we can take this power out of intermediaries, but this power just simply disappear. It changed from this entity, this big entity, and it has to be distributed between the token holders, between the other people that make part of this network. I think like when we make the humans to understand what is this responsibility. Now I'm as a surveillance individual, and now I have the power. Like I'm influenced by this market because it's still like a market force. Then I think the next steps like. I gain this power. It's like now we have like a decentralized social network. Who moderates it? Who is the person that should be able to say, oh, this content is bad? And how is this person evaluating that it's bad or good? I think this is it's a kind of the beginning of the habit hole. It's like, okay, now you do have some responsibility. You have responsibility over what you write, what you communicate. You're your own node. You are propagating information in the network. So it's not like responsibility of any other entity to fiscalize what you say. So how do you do that? Or you are creating a community. What are the rules of this community? So everyone has the same voice. Are you the one that will be selling, hey, we will organize the feed like that or like that? How do you you have to start making these questions in a more community way, and you have to understand all the market force that can apply to that. Because it's not simple, okay, now I have a list of everything that is banned in blockchain. And now I have a list of everyone that says those words. This is a responsibility only to carry this list. So that's why when you talk about how we can see the world in the future, it's like this transition has a lot of new questions because all the old paradigm was like aligned with this central entity taking those decisions from you. That's the power of Facebook, like taking, getting all this information and decide when he wants to release this information to you. So if now we are starting doing that in a collaborative way, how do we do that? We do that like by fluid governance, we do that like by appointing someone, like by federalism. There's a lot of ways that we can try to explore. I think like our kind of mission should be to explore those things, but understanding like the second order consequence of that, to understand like who are the players that will be stakeholders. Is this person educated enough to understand all this responsibility? If no, how can we make this easier? I think this is how we make this connection better. I think there is a lot of education, not only from the people that will become holders, but also from the developers. Like, how do we make this process easy? It's 2018. Like, it's not like UX is still a problem. So all these questions is, it's not an answer. It's more like we do have lots of questions to ask ourselves together and to decide like which way we want our future together. It's collaborative. It's a different paradigm on building stuff.
Okay, thank you, Rafael.
Thank you.
Do you think technology and the technological part of the projects and the governance part of the relation and the human side of the projects should be governed in two different ways, or in
We do have the capability, like we can, you can have an organization on the internet today, you can pay everyone like by Bitcoin, and you can escape some of the jurisdiction. But we still live in a real world, like so, for example, you need to buy a house, you need to know like where this income comes from. So it is a transition. I don't think that we will just wake up tomorrow and everything will be decentralized or DAOs, everything. But how do we work together? Like how do we work together with the cities that want to give their citizens that option? How do we work together with the communities that need some kind of legal legislation, even if that's for inserting some trust? Like one of the things that Bitcoin solves is mostly this: we don't need to like you always ended up trusting the issuer, but there's a lot of entities, like not only the government, but like the lawyers, a lot of small companies, and that they take this value out. Is it possible to do that in a way that is more autonomous? Like, should like a citizen has the power to decide, I want to open this company, I want to be in Barcelona, I want to open this company in Barcelona, I want to take profit of this legislation here. Like, it should be the person's own decision. It shouldn't be, oh, now it's all decentralized, you won't have governments anymore. So I don't think we should like get out of this. There's a lot of time-tested entities that do provide some value. So I think we shouldn't be against them at all. You should be like trying to understand how we evolve together. It shouldn't be a debate, but more like a dialectic. So.
Okay, thank you. And now I have some question for Marc. Basically, the question is, there are three questions in one, okay? Can blockchain be conceived as a common good? Can blockchain be the origin for common good projects? And how, and how cooperative platforms can make blockchain more aligned with common good criteria?
Okay. I think the first thing that we have to say is defining what's common good. Okay, and the keyword here is common. I think that we are living times of, let's say, high individuality, and it seems that everything is based today in our economy in something, I don't know, something that we can call perhaps the proof of own interest. And there is the paradox that blockchain allows optimizing this proof of own interest through collaboration with other people. And this is the real paradox of blockchain. If we take this word of trustless system, exactly this is what makes that people can collaborate together for developing projects in the blockchain. But as we have been saying here, this is not possible in a way that we are beginning from scratch, from a starting point. Nothing that happened before is happening now. This is not the real world. So here we need that city councils are pushing hard for implementing this type of solutions that allow cooperative platforms through the blockchain technology. And this means trusting in open source solutions. And this means trusting in decentralized solutions. There is a fear from city councils for giving a voice to the citizenship. And this is one of the main problems that we have. There is an establishment that is not only in the economic sector, there is an establishment in the political sector too. And developing a decentralized blockchain in cities involves the collaboration of city councils now, because they can push for this adoption. If not, we are creating parallel platforms, and we have to begin from zero with people, telling them, hey, you can join this, you can choose your own governance, and so on. And it means that you are fighting against another system. And I think that it's better just trying to adapt to this system, to this technology, than fighting against a system that is existing since a couple of centuries. No? And then there is another thing that I wanted to say, something that I said during my introduction. There is a long tradition related with governance in some cooperative systems, for example, that are not using the technology or are far away from the technology. We have to learn from these systems. They have a lot of experience, and when someone is defining a governance protocol, this someone, sorry, I have nothing about, nothing against programmers or people from computer science, but perhaps we have to share this knowledge for defining these governance protocols with other people. Okay, with experience in the analog world, let's say.
Okay. And last short question: do you think you talk about tension between public administration and these projects that decentralize somehow the society? Do you think that we should wait these administrations to adapt to this system, or we should create before the conditions like, for example, Bitnation, decentralized jurisdiction, and start to use it?
We have perhaps...
Can be a mix too.
Yeah, we can do... The political answer is we can do both two things at the same time, okay? But I think that as citizens, one of the things that we cannot allow is that our vote is a paper that we are just introducing inside a ballot box only once every 4 years, and not knowing what's happening in the middle. Now, thanks to the blockchain, administrations and city councils, governments can allow the citizenship to share the decisions that they are implementing in the city, and to empower people for being part of these solutions. And then I think that it's our responsibility asking the people in the government to do that.
Okay, thank you. Now, I don't know if there are any questions. We have 7 minutes. So if there is any question, now is the moment to ask to our panelists. No? You have a question?
Talking about this relationship between the governments and those companies, and the blockchain and these decentralizations, me, there is something that always goes around my mind. No, this thing of that. I'm really big believers of cryptocurrencies. No, I really think that it will be the money of the future, cryptos. No, and how do you deal as a government when the citizens start using a cryptocurrency as Monero or Zcash or Dash with a high level of privacy in which they don't pay taxes? People, I mean, maybe this blockchain revolution brings us to a place where governments cannot pick up taxes as they used to do, and a government without taxes, it maybe in 2 months it's already bankrupt. How do you feel this?
The governments can still tax at different levels of purchase. Like every time we consume, the things we still need to be produced. And I think we are talking about network effects and market effects. I think like one of the biggest reasons why we should support like cryptocurrencies is exactly because this incapability of using force to make the citizen behave like it wants should be taken out. Like if it needed to be a separation from money, it should be used like that. And I think these forces should ensure that the government works better. It's like that. For example, we talk about like choosing to be in Barcelona. If you choose to be in Barcelona and if you believe in this government, like we should like it should be still. The taxes aren't that bad, but can we assert that the taxes are being used as we wanted? Can we assert that the votes are being respected? If not, do we have the option to change to Monero? If so, yes.
Okay, thank you. Marc?
I think that the transition between the system that we have today and a decentralized system, as the one that you are explaining, is a regulation. So it's a responsibility of governments regulating what's happening. When you are talking about regulation, you have always this fear of regulating things too soon and then just avoiding innovation, avoiding the development of the technology, or regulating too late and not being able to solve the problems that the impact of these technologies have created. No? It's difficult knowing when to regulate, but I think this transition has to be done through regulation.
Okay, thank you. So now I think we leave it here. Thank you very much to the panelists, and thank you for coming to this blockchain meetup.